So hello everyone, this is Chris Atwood and this is Rituals of the Rich and Famous, and welcome this evening where we're going to investigate once again why rituals are the unspoken secret of all successful people. You know, if you've been with us before, then you know that people in every area of life, whether it's sports stars or business leaders or musicians and artists or celebrities, all of them use rituals. Those people who've been successful find that rituals allow them to perform at their best, to be able to stay calm even in the midst of intense pressure, and to create balance in their lives. You know, when you hear about Simon Cowell's daily ritual of climbing a tree, or Warren Buffett's 12 hours a week of bridge, or Colin Farrell, who wears the same boxer trunks every time he starts a new movie, why do these people do these crazy things? Because in one way or another, those rituals are meaningful to them, that they help them to stay balanced, to be able to feel that they can do their best. When World Cup soccer player Leighton Barnes, who plays for the British team, goes out on the playing field with millions of people watching him, why does he get down on one knee, untie his shoes, and then tie them again? You know, when we're talking about rituals, we're not talking about religious practices, although there are valuable rituals in religion. We're not talking about superstition, although maybe Leighton Barnes's ritual may at first seem that way. And we're also not talking about habits. We all have good and bad habits, but those are things that develop unconsciously in our lives. And when we're talking about rituals, we're talking about conscious, intentional actions, conscious, intentional practices that we choose to make habitual because they improve our lives. So when Leighton Barnes unties and then ties his shoes again, the reason he's doing it is because it separates his ordinary daily life from his life on the playing field, that it puts him in a mental and emotional state where he can perform at his best, where he can stay focused, even with millions of people watching him, even with thousands of fans screaming from the stands. Tonight, I have the great pleasure of interviewing a man who teaches how do you create success? How do you be successful in your life? Jack Canfield is co-creator, co-author of the New York Times #1 best-selling Chicken Soup for the Soul book series, which currently has over 225 titles and more than 500 million copies in print in 47 languages. And what Jack does with his life, because he's also the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Success Principles, How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be, what Jack does is he teaches people how to be successful. He's taught people on 6 different continents to become multimillionaires, business leaders, best-selling authors, leading sales professionals, successful entrepreneurs, world-class athletes, while at the same time creating balanced, fulfilling, and healthy lives. He's been inducted into the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame. He's appeared on more than 1,000 radio and TV shows, including Oprah, Montel, Larry King Live, The Today Show, and 2 hour-long PBS specials devoted entirely to his work. Jack's also one of the teachers that was featured in the hit movie The Secret and the best-selling book by the same name, as well as in the movies The Truth and The Tapping Solution. So I feel personally a great privilege and honor because Jack I consider a good friend. He's also founder of the Transformational Leadership Council, made up of some of the top trainers, speakers, and authors in the world, in which ritual is very much a part of those twice yearly annual gatherings. And I have the good fortune to see Jack there a couple times a year. So Jack, thank you so much for taking a little time out of what I know is an incredibly busy schedule to talk to us a little bit about your unspoken secret of success, rituals.
Well, I'm glad to join you, Chris. You're one of my better friends, so I'm always glad to support you and what you're doing in the world because you do it so well. And I just learned about tying my shoes twice before I go on the playing field.
That's right. Well, and you know, the thing I would take away from that for all of our listeners is that rituals are valuable when they're meaningful to you. And untying and tying your shoes may not be meaningful to you, but it is for Leighton Barnes. And so it makes sense that he would do that. So, Jack, would you start off telling us a little bit about why you consider rituals to be important? Because I know that they are an important part of what you do both in your business and in your personal life.
Well, I think they do a lot of things. I'm just going to build on your Leighton Barnes story. Before I go on and speak, I do two things. And I speak, God, on average about 3 days a week. In fact, I just got a phone call 5 minutes ago about some speaker who can't make it to Anaheim, California tomorrow. And so I'm going to go down and take his place, it looks like.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and 1,000 people. It's fun. I enjoy it. But anyway, what I do, I go into the room before I go on, and if I can, before everyone gets there, and I literally do a ritual where I envision the room filled with golden white light, and then I imagine a pyramid over the room of purple light and white light, and then I imagine all these archangels standing at the four corners of the room, bringing their energy in, so only the highest good will happen in that room. And then right before I go on, often during my introduction, I do this little invocation where I say, Father, Mother, God, I ask just now to be surrounded by the Christ white light of your Holy Spirit, and that I be guided to only say that which is for the highest good of all concerned. Please help me be of service to this group. And it's what you said about his tying his shoes twice. It really creates a difference from my normal life. And now I'm out here, and my job is to serve and uplift, inspire and empower the audiences I'm speaking to. And so that gets my head on straight. And I really do believe it invokes a higher power and all that energy into the room. And so I'm not there alone.
Yeah.
So it's an important ritual for me, just to change space. Another thing I do is when my offices are on my property. There's good news about that, called it's 1 minute away to lunch. The bad news, it's 1 minute away from everything my wife wants to tell me about all day long. But there's also this reality that when I leave my office, I want to be in a different space. One of the big issues I found with doctors, I used to do a lot of work with doctors groups, and the doctors would come home and treat their wives like the nurses. And the wives didn't like it all that much, because the doctors were gods in the hospital, but they were meant to be a spouse, not a god at home.
Right.
And so for me, we have a ritual that when I come home, we do one of two things depending on the day. Either we take the dogs for a walk. It's about a 20-minute walk around. I won't call it a block because I live in a fairly large area where there's a lot of the large estates, but this road is a 20-minute circumference back to our house. And we just unwind, talk about the day, and just kind of reconnect as people. Yeah. Or sometimes we'll sit and we'll just have a glass of wine in the backyard and maybe eat, some hors d'oeuvres or something and just unwind that way. But there's always this ritual that says we're now transitioning from being in this stressed out, totally type A focused space to being a husband and being a wife again. So that's a very important ritual of transition as well.
Absolutely.
I think the other purpose of rituals is they provide structure to your life.
Uh-huh.
And so you have a set routine, you might say. Like for me in the morning, I wake up and I always, after I go to the bathroom, I sit in meditation. I do my affirmations and visualization as I come out of meditation because I believe I'm in a very, alpha, brainwave state. So it sends that out into the quantum field, if you will, which I believe is really important to connect my intentions to the people in the world that can support that and want to be supported by that. And then I do a gratitude exercise where I spend about 5 minutes just being grateful. And I do this rampage of appreciation that I learned from Esther and Jerry Hicks and their work with Abraham, where everything I look at, I'm sitting in my office and I'm looking at this painting that Spar Street painted of this dove coming down. And I'm just grateful that he took the time to do that to, provide me with this wonderful, inspiring thing. But I also I'm grateful for the people who made the oil paints, the people who framed it, for the white dove that it even exists and acts as a symbol of peace. And then it makes me grateful for the United Nations. I just go on and on and on like that for 5 minutes. And I get really high off it. I get stoned off it, and I often do that in my seminars. I send people out on a rampage of appreciation break. They're not allowed to talk for the 15-minute break, go to the bathroom, do all that stuff, and then just be grateful. And they come back and like tears in their eyes when they start talking about how they never take time to slow down and appreciate what they have. So that's an important ritual. Yeah. And I think I start most of my seminars with people being grateful. I say, stand up, introduce yourself to 3 people and say 3 things you're grateful for to each person. Because I believe that gratitude creates the space that allows more stuff to come in. And a couple of other daily rituals I have after I exercise and do all that is I intend for my day. How do I want my day to go? So I visualize that. And like this phone call being, fabulous. And I spent time thinking about the questions I thought you might ask me and what my answers would be so I could be of the highest service. At the end of the day, I do a thing called the daily review, where I actually look at what is my intention for the day, or I often have an intention for a whole month. Like I remember one year, my wife and I took Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements, and we made each one of those agreements the focus for 3 months. So the 4 agreements for the 4 quarters of the year. And so speak with impeccability, which means you never say anything negative about yourself. You don't gossip. You don't talk about other people. So at the end of the day, I would say, okay, based on that intention, and I would close my eyes and say to my higher self, my inner spirit, my guide, whatever, show me where I could have spoken with greater impeccability. And darn it, if there's not always a place that shows up in my mind, you think you're doing well, but then your subconscious is paying attention because you've got this intention. And then what I've learned to do is replay that scene, doing it the way I would have wished I'd done it had I been more conscious. And what that does, it lays a blueprint down into the subconscious mind about how to do it next time I find myself in that situation. So those are just some of the rituals I do. I mean, we'll talk about more as we go through this, but I would just say one more thing. I think rituals also provide a sense of security, a sense of familiarity, a sense of this structure in my life tells me that there's something I can push against and lean on that's always there, whether it's the church or my spiritual group or my wife or my family or our Christmas rituals or whatever it might be. There's some sense of deeper meaning that gives us a sense of security and a sense of familiarity. I know when my son Christopher was 2 years old, I must have watched The Little Mermaid with him. It was a Disney film, probably 300 times. And that every night he'd want to watch it until he got bored, and then he wanted to watch, Ferngully at 300 times. That sense of there's something here, it's familiar, it always happens the same way, I can count on it. Just like, a ritual in the church or something like that, communion or whatever. And I think, too, that anyone who's had children, if you read a story to a child at night, and you change 5 words just to mess with them, they go, Dad, that's not what it says.
That's right. Yeah.
They instantly know you're not reading the story the way it's read. And it messes with them. They want that security of this is something I can count on. Exactly. So those are just some of my thoughts about, I think, the value of
Fabulous.
Ritual.
Fabulous. Now, I want to come back for a minute to the first one that you mentioned, because
sure.
We call rituals the unspoken secret of the world's most successful people for a reason, because oftentimes those rituals are very, very personal. And I want to thank you for being willing to share what appear to be some very personal rituals with all of us. Thank you for that. And in that, I just want to point out and ask you to comment on this idea that in the ancient texts it says that 75% of the world is unseen. Only 25% can we experience with our senses. And as you describe this ritual before you go on to speak of creating this pyramid over the whole hall and the archangels and all of this, it seems that you're very much connecting with that unseen aspect of life. And so I wonder if you would talk just a little bit about how you see this interaction between what we experience with our senses and the rituals that you've described that are very much tapping into something which is beyond the senses.
Well, I believe that everything is energy. And I believe that a lot of, we can't see energy. We can sometimes see the effects of it. Like someone said, you can't see the wind, but you can see the leaves blowing, which is the effect of the wind on the leaves or the grass in the fields and so forth. Yeah. So for me, when I first learned about all of this, it's something intuitively felt right, but it was years of me doing it before I started seeing results over and over and over of these, things that we'd say are metaphysical as opposed to physical. Metaphysical just means beyond the physical, our ability to sense it. And so for me, as I started to do those kind of rituals, invocations and prayers and meditations and intentionality to move energy, to invite other forces to be present, to support, I truly believe I have guardian angels. But I also believe that we have to ask them. They're not allowed to work in our behalf if we don't ask them for their support. Not allowed to intervene. They don't have that will. It's our will that we've been given. So I'm a big believer in asking. I mean, if it's there to be received, let's ask. And I noticed that there may be times when I forget to do those rituals. I'll give you an example. I was running an advanced training. I have this advanced seminar I do for my Breakthrough to Success graduates. And I just come out of a 7-day training about 2 weeks earlier. It was the most amazing training ever. The breakthroughs were unbelievable. And the first day, and I thought we'd just go right into the next one and build on that. And the first day was really funky. I didn't know what was going on. And I called a friend of mine, Deirdre Hayde, who's a spiritual teacher and sometimes my guide. And I said, Deirdre, I need some help. Maybe you can, because she sees things I can't see. Right. She said, let's look at the room. And she said, oh my God, there's holes in the room. There's energy holes all over the place, especially on the south wall. So I want you to close your eyes and we're just going to fill those holes in with energy, create a nice safe space. And we did that. And some people would say, that is really stupid. That is really ridiculous.
Some people would say that's superstition.
Exactly. But the next day, it was like we were right back on day 8 of that other seminar. Everything went smoothly. Everything went well. So I am a true believer in these rituals, and they really work for me. And, when I used to do Tai Chi every morning, that was a ritual I did that centered me. Then I started doing it at night before I went to bed. I slept better through the night because my energy became focused and calmed. Right. So, every night I have a ritual. I stretch, I do yoga, and then I do meditation of some kind or visualization of some kind. And I find that when I do that, I sleep deeper. I wake up more refreshed. I often wake up before my alarm clock goes off. Right. So all of those things you're talking about, unseen energy, I believe it. There's a lot more than we can see. I mean, we know that dogs hear sounds we don't hear. Right. That doesn't mean the sound isn't there. Yeah. And so we see a very small spectrum of light and hear a very small spectrum of things. But I've woken up, and this is speaking about personal, I woke up in a hotel. This is about 3 months in a row. I was getting my work was having a lot of impact. And I woke up, and it was like there was like these negative energies swirling around the room. It was really scary. It was like something out of, some movie, like where they do exorcisms and stuff. Right. And at first, I thought, you need more sleep and don't drink coffee.
You're losing it here, Jack. Yeah.
But this happened almost every night for a couple of months.
Wow.
And then I remember speaking to one of my friends, and she said, I don't know if you're Christian or not. She said, but just say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave. And I thought, well, I can do that. And I did that the next time it happened, and it stopped. Wow. And it never happened again. Wow. And so I think that as my work was creating more and more light in the world, it was kind of threatening some of the forces of darkness, if you will. And I know this sounds like some Hollywood movie, with special effects, but I swear to God that is what happened. And so I believe when I'm surrounded by light, which is how I end all my meditations, I surround myself with an eggshell of white light as I go into the world, and I'm protected. And I never get sick. Have you ever seen me sick?
No.
Never been sick. Never missed a gig for being sick. I'm totally happy all the time, except for, if my daughter gets into trouble or something, I might get affected by that. But basically, I'm a big believer that these rituals work, or I wouldn't keep doing them.
Yeah. Well, and what I love in listening to you, as you know, thank you again for the endorsement you gave for our new book, Your Hidden Riches, Unleashing the Power of Ritual to Create a Life of Meaning and Purpose. And one of the things we talk about in that book is the fact that there's so much more to life than what we can see and experience with our senses. And that's what I hear you talking about tonight, is that being who you are, you have really tapped into and connected with that part of life that is foreign, perhaps, for many people who haven't had your experiences of seeing the shift, the change that happens when you consciously choose to create protection, create a shift or a change in the energy in a room. And thank you so much for sharing these stories, because I think it opens all of us up to a different way of looking at things. Now, you work a lot with corporations. You speak to corporate organizations. If you were talking to a corporate audience, how would you talk about rituals in some meaningful way? I made the statement earlier that business leaders, and this is what I've observed, great business leaders use rituals to create cohesive teams, to create strong corporate cultures. How would you talk to business people about the value of rituals in a business or work context?
Well, I don't use the word ritual in a business context because it does have a little bit of that metaphysical woo-woo connotation to it. I talk about disciplines of success.
Uh-huh.
So, and you used the word habits earlier.
Uh-huh.
And so I talk about disciplines of success. And some of those disciplines are, in fact, visualizing your successes before they happen, using affirmations. I teach business people to do tapping, meridian tapping, where you tap on these acupuncture points to release negative feelings and to release fear and to release negative and limiting beliefs. I talk about the importance of doing that on a daily basis, not just when you're upset. It's like saying only take a shower when you really stink bad. Why? It doesn't
We
make
hope
any
not.
sense. Yeah, so it's like a daily thing we do that keeps us smelling fresh and being healthy and keeps the microbes at a minimum and so forth.
Yeah.
And so I say that if we tap every day on any little bit of upset that occurs, I don't think anybody goes through a day where you didn't get a little bit irritated or frustrated or impatient or maybe even angry or hostile when someone did something, or your IPO didn't make as much money as you thought it would on the first day of the bell. Not like Alibaba, which did really well, whatever it was. But the point being that I think there are daily rituals you can do, and I do it in the context of success. What are the things that successful people do? And successful people monitor their thoughts. Successful people visualize their successes. Successful people talk with self-confidence, even when they don't feel like it, so they can encourage their teams to have that level of certainty and confidence that they're going to reach their goals. Right. The idea of, and I talk a lot about health when I talk in corporate settings. Not that I'm a health expert, but you have to have energy. If you're going to be a leader, you have dynamic energy. When you did that introduction, I went, oh, there's a part of Chris I haven't seen. You really, because normally I just see you in a conversational mode.
Right.
But the idea is if we don't have energy and enthusiasm, we can't enroll people in our vision, in our sale, whatever it is we're trying to do. And so rituals like sleeping, Alex Mendosian says you ought to get at least 3 nights a week where you get 8 hours sleep. You can't do that every night. Sometimes you have to get up and catch an airplane. But, you're just going to be happier. Your reticular system is more functioning. Your long-term memory functions better. Your human growth hormone kicks in, all of that stuff. And your secretary likes you better when you're not in a bad mood. You didn't sleep last night. Right. And people like to do business with people who are happy and fun to be around. Yeah. So those kind of rituals as well. Fasting at least once a quarter, fast for a couple of days, cleanse your body out of the toxins, because we're building up a lot of toxic residue in our bodies. I think exercise needs to become a ritual. And we know that whenever you're building a new habit, first thing in the morning is when you should do it, because your willpower wanes over the course of the day. There's actual research. That's why people do a good diet all day long at 10 o'clock. That's when they cheat, because by then you're kind of tired. Right. So if you're going to exercise, do it first thing in the morning. If you're going to start reading, 20 minutes in a sacred text, do it first thing in the morning. So these are some ritual type things I teach executives. And the other thing I teach is gratitude. Not just gratitude to the universe, but gratitude to your people, your team that support you. We start every staff meeting, and I teach people to do this, by going around and talking about a recent success, a win. What that does, it brings all the positive energy into the room. So as you're trying to move this team forward, you're not starting with, hey, our numbers are down, or, and everyone thinks, oh, there's a meeting, we're in trouble now, we're going to get, yelled at by the boss. Right. I remember being a high school teacher, and you got one of those announcements over the intercom. All the teachers are required to report to the gymnasium to meet with the principal at 3 o'clock. We all went, uh-oh, what happened? Right. We walk in, and there's like 4 of those big, long 6-foot tables, you see in conference rooms, set up with ice cream and nuts and chocolate sauce and caramel sauce and all this stuff. And it turns out we had won the city debate championship or something like that. And the principal wanted to celebrate with the entire faculty. And we were shocked, and we loved it. Yeah. And it was like the ritual of celebration of successes. Yes. Talk about, whenever you have a win, bring your team together, acknowledge everybody. Maybe there's a small bonus. Maybe it's just a $20 bill. It says, take your wife out to dinner. This will pay for the wine tonight or something. But the idea being that somehow you're stopping to say, hey, we're celebrating our successes. So the inner child goes, let's have more of these successes, because this feels good when we do, as opposed to, well, don't get too happy. We still have these other goals we have to reach. Whenever we finished the chicken soup for the soul book, we would always get 2 or 3 bottles of champagne, a bunch of strawberries, sometimes chocolate covered strawberries, and we would celebrate. And if we have some staff who are, alcoholics, can't drink, we would have like, Martinelli's sparkling apple cider or something.
Mhm.
But the point being, it was a ritual we did. We would take the manuscript. Today you ship it off by digital, but back then it was like you had all the type pages, put them in one of those boxes, wrapped it up. We'd all do this together. We'd send positive energy in it with our hands, and then we'd take it to the UPS office. We'd come back, and that's when the champagne and the strawberries would happen. And we would have quarterly parties where we would have a pool party, because my house has a pool at it, where we would just drink wine and get in our pool with our bathing suits on and suntan and get a little drunk and have fun. And so I think those rituals let people know that there are rhythms to your life, just like
Yes.
you have the rituals of Thanksgiving and Easter and Christmas and Hanukkah and Passover and Seders and all this, so that you have this sense of rhythm that the seasons provide, but we also provide through ritual that gives people a sense of, I belong to this stable organization that I can count on, that
Right.
rewards us for being humans and for extending effort out into the world.
Yeah, wonderful, fabulous, and our half hour has raced by somehow. So thank you so much for that, Jack. As you talk about these rituals in corporations and the rhythm of life, really, I think if I were to summarize one of the greatest benefits and values of rituals is in creating that rhythm to life. In traditional cultures, as I know even the seasons were celebrated with the beginning of
Yes,
each season, right? So that we were always had that connection to that rhythm,
right,
natural rhythm of life. And
right.
so,
We have a summer solstice parade in Santa Barbara.
uh-huh.
I think it's June 21st or whatever it is, and the whole town comes out, and people get really crazy, and people do these ridiculous floats, and it's all kind of sexual and fun, and it's summer.
Yeah,
And
right.
that really is like a ritual our whole community of Santa Barbara celebrates.
Yes,
And when you have like the film festival in Cannes, the whole city, it's a
right.
rhythm. I want to share one more thing, if I may. I don't know
Sure,
if we would go
please.
over 2 minutes,
That's fine.
but one of the rituals I think that's important, that I really want to stress, that I think is unstressed in modern world, especially the Western world, is the rites of passage for young people.
Ah,
We used to have initiations where young men would be initiated into manhood, young women would be initiated into womanhood,
yeah.
and they would be taken off with the men or taken off with the women, and you knew at that point you'd become a man. And we've lost that in our cultures, and it's been replaced by gangs that go out and do drive-by shootings to prove you're a man, or the whole gang beats you up until you're bloody pulp to prove you can take it. And I think that we need to reinstitute rituals for our youth. And some kids graduate high school, but we have some cities now where there's a 50% dropout rate. These kids never get that ritual of walking across the stage. When my kids were 16, they each got to go anywhere in the world they wanted to go for 10 days. And that
Wow.
was their ritual of rite of passage. I mean, my youngest son wanted to go to London, Barcelona, and Paris. We spent 3 days in each city. My stepson wanted to go to Tahiti, and my daughter wanted to go to New York and just do the fashion world, do that whole thing. Fine.
Right.
But the point is, I think, find ways in your families to have rituals that the kids can count on every year, that become the rhythm of that family life and the rhythm of their rite of passage into adulthood.
I'm so glad you mentioned this, Jack. A week ago I just got back from the rite of passage for my oldest daughter. She's 6 years
Oh,
old.
cool.
She just started school. So the week before she started school, we all went down to Italy for a little family vacation. She spent a
Mhm.
day with her mom, a day with me, and then we had a celebration day all together. And she got presents, and we got a chance to talk about, what does it mean now? You've gone from a little girl to being a girl who's going to school. You're going to make new friends. You're going to have a new role in the family and in life. And she loved it. I have to tell you,
That is
she
cool.
loved it. And just one other quick story on this. When we were writing the book, we interviewed a woman from Nigeria who was raised in the Yoruban tradition, and her life was filled with ritual. She now lives in Los Angeles. She went to school in Great Britain. I think she went to Oxford or somewhere. But she said that the rituals of her youth have always allowed her to feel beautiful, to have self-confidence, to wherever she went, whatever she did. And the thing that really struck me, and I'm going to do this for my two daughters as they get to this age, she said that when she first started her period, that for a year beforehand, the elders of her village the elder women would get together with her and talk to her about what was going to happen and how special she was, that she was a co-creator with God of life,
Wow.
that no
Wow.
man could be born without being coming through a woman's womb, and she had such an important place and role to play. And so when she actually started menstruating and she started her period, this was a great celebration. She was so excited. She ran in and told her mom. She and her mom got all the women, and they started making food, and they had this big celebration. The elders sat with her again and helped her to reconnect with her ancestors and with what this meant for her life, and of course relating to boys and all of those things. But I just was so struck by the power of that, because in our society, unfortunately, young women go through this very important transition where their physiology is very obviously changing, and most of them don't know what to do with it. If anything, it's embarrassment and go hide it somehow, And
Yes.
so I was so excited by that, and it's definitely something as a father I intend to implement for my daughters. So thank you for bringing that up.
Well, it's interesting. Our mutual friend Raymond Aaron has a ritual. I don't know if you know about it, but every year he creates a box for his daughter
Uh-huh.
of all the memories of that year, photographs,
Uh,
diary entries that he made, tickets to concerts they went to, etc. And he puts that box in a chest.
uh,
And when they're 21, he gives them that chest with 21 boxes in it. And that's
oh,
what they get on their birthday as they move from their childhood into their full adulthood. I mean, and I think those kind of
yeah,
rituals are really special. And often we're at a loss because we don't live in a culture where everyone does that.
yeah.
We have to have books like yours that teach people what some of those other rituals are that inspire us to create those rituals in our family. So you've done a great service to the world by doing that. And that Aruban story is quite inspiring.
Hey, so thank you, Jack. Thank you for being here tonight, and for everyone who's listening. Please join us again next Thursday for our next interview, Rituals of the Rich and Famous, and to immerse yourself. If you really want to get a taste of what Jack has been talking about tonight, then please join us October 24th to 26th. Just go to hiddenrichesexperience.com and you can experience the power of ritual yourself, as we've been talking about it this evening. So, Jack Canfield, thank you so much. I send you all my love, appreciation, and gratitude. And
Oh,
and
thank you very much, Chris. It's been a pleasure to share with you.
hey, take good care. Bye.
Bye, buddy. Bye, everybody.